Good morning from New Zealand. We are finally on our honeymoon after 7 years of marriage. Today's actually our second day. Yesterday was just basically arriving and buying some groceries and essentials for the rest of the trip. Today is our first proper itinerary. We're going to Arrowtown. I think it's gonna be like a short hike and maybe some lunch along the way, but yeah, let's go. Arrowtown is a historic gold mining town just 20 minutes away from Queenstown, and looking back, this was my favorite part of the entire trip. We started with a moderately easy hike along the river where we got to just enjoy the nature and each other's company. We ended the hike at this bridge and then checked out the Chinese settlement. So a lot of Chinese people came during the gold rush and experienced a lot of racism and hardship, and here we got a glimpse of the conditions they lived in during that time. The main street is just one road with a lot of charming little shops, so we took a stroll and checked them all out. This candy shop honestly looked like something out of a fairy tale. We got our lunch at Arrowtown Bakery since there weren't a lot of other options. We tried a sausage roll and a steak and cheese pie, and I feel like with pies in New Zealand, you just can't go wrong. We also tried some fudge we got from the candy store, and you could tell we were disappointed. To end the day, we visited the Lakes District Museum, and I love museums, especially the ones that cover modern-ish history. This one recreated a lot of the living conditions of the past, so it felt like a trip back in time, and I highly recommend it. And that was all for the day. Day 3 of our honeymoon. It's a rainy morning, kind of drizzling, not very heavy rain. So the first place we stopped by is Deer Heights Park. It's a self-driving park that has really great views of Queenstown. And they also did Lord of the Rings filming in some parts. So the views are really nice. And the best part is you can buy feed for the animals. And while you're driving along, you can get out of the car or feed the animals from the car. The rain is supposed to stop in the afternoon, but I think if you don't want to walk outside but you still want to do an outdoor activity, this park is a really good idea. And we did come to New Zealand during off-peak season, but I think that's actually a good thing because it's less crowded and we kind of feel like we have the place to ourselves. For lunch, we're gonna get the famous Ferg burger and just walk around town, and yeah, I think that'll be all for today. Day 4 of our trip. Today we are going to take a cruise to Milford Sound, and the bulk of the day is just a bus ride going to and from there. It's like a 4-hour, 5-hour bus ride, and I've never seen so many sheep and cows and horses in my life, so that was pretty nice, but I think I slept for most of the ride. So after 5 hours and several scenic spots along the way for everyone to take pictures, we arrived at Milford Sound and boarded a cruise ride that took about 90 minutes. The first thing we did was eat the lunch provided because I was starving, and then we got to enjoy the views. Milford Sound is technically a fjord and not a sound because it was formed by glaciers and not seawater, but I guess it's too late to change the name now. We went on a rather dry period, but I've been told if you go right after the rain, you can see hundreds of waterfalls, and I imagine that would have been even more breathtaking. The nature here was absolutely majestic, and the vastness of it really makes you feel like a speck of dust in this universe. While I don't regret this day trip, however, I wouldn't take it again because 10 hours on the road for a 90-minute boat ride isn't really worth it a second time. I'm still happy to say that I did it though, and after another 4-hour drive back to Queenstown, we arrived back at our Airbnb for dinner and whipped up some instant ramyun, and that was a perfect end to our day. Our last day in Queenstown began with a round of mini golf. We basically had the whole place to ourselves for a good half an hour, which is one perk of traveling during off-peak season. Once our game was done, we took the gondola up the mountain, which I must say makes the mountain itself extremely unsightly, but the views you get from there are amazing. We also went for a few luge rides. I'd only tried the luge in Singapore like 8 years ago, but it was easy enough to relearn, and there were 2 different courses, which added to the fun. We also went to Ferg Burger again because the burgers were that good and once just wasn't enough. In the afternoon, we went for an hour-long soak at an onsen. This place offers a private, secluded deck with unobstructed mountain views, and soaking in warm water while the air outside is cold was honestly the best feeling ever. Then in the evening, we bought groceries and snacks, and that ends our Queenstown part of the trip. Good morning, it's day 6 of our New Zealand trip, and after 5 nights in Queenstown, we're finally moving on to Wanaka. On the way, we were going to stop by this orchard and do an orchard tour, but as you can see, it's completely covered in fog, mist, I don't know the difference. All the apples are gone, there's no fruits, there's nothing to see, and the employee said you shouldn't do a tour, it's not worth the money and you can't see a thing. So we're just walking around. It looks like a horror movie. It's actually a nice morning walk, and they gave us free coffee, so this is how we're spending our morning, and then we're gonna move on to Wanaka to see the tree. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a pretty relaxing day. On our way to Wanaka, we stopped by the Cromwell Heritage Precinct. This is a historic tourist attraction right beside a lake with reconstructed buildings from the gold rush era in the 1860s. Some of the shops are repurposed as souvenir stores and cafes and whatnot, while others are preserved to show you what life was like back then. After that, we drove to a lavender farm. You first walk into a cafe area where they sell all kinds of lavender products and lavender flavored snacks. Unfortunately, it was not lavender season, so there was hardly any purple to be seen, but it was still a lovely day for a walk, and the air was still fragrant from the herbs. They also have an animal farm, and we got to feed some of them, which made the visit well worth it. For lunch, we went for crepes that were recommended by Nick's colleague. I had the savory pesto crepe that was so satisfying, and then we checked into our charming Airbnb and called it a day. Hello from the top of Mount Iron. Today is Saturday. It was a pretty cloudy day, not too sunny, which made it perfect for a hike. But before coming here, we went to a place called Puzzling World. I think it's a place for families and kids, but we still had a good time. There was this like big maze and then a bunch of optical illusion rooms.
Oh, I'm moving now.
And then we hiked for about an hour to get up here. It's tougher than any hill in Singapore, but still a very manageable hike, and you get rewarded with the best views. But now we're gonna head back down and get lunch. The next day, we left Wanaka with not much planned. We stopped by a lookout point on the way, and for lunch we went to a salmon farm, which seems to have the only decent restaurant in the area because it was uncommonly crowded. They serve all kinds of salmon dishes, so we got some sushi to share. Nick got the salmon in a bag, and I got salmon chowder. The food was good, but to be honest, nothing to rave about. Originally, the plan was to go over there to Mount Cook, but as you can see, it was raining in that particular region, so we chilled in the car by the lake instead and caught the most perfect rainbow on the way out. We stayed one night in Twizel and did a quick petting zoo tour because Nick loves animals. The animals in this country seem so happy with all that space to just roam and graze. I've decided that in my next life, I want to be reborn as a sheep in New Zealand. Good morning. Today is our most adventurous day yet. We're at Mount Cook and we just came back from the Hooker Valley Trail. So this morning it was a very, very foggy drive up to Mount Cook and the forecast said it was going to rain, which was why originally we planned to cancel the hike, but then we decided to just try our luck. And it was drizzling when we got here, but we just did the hike in the rain, as did a lot of other people, it turns out. The rain got too heavy towards the end, which didn't really matter because the track is like partially closed off, so we couldn't finish the whole thing anyway, even if it were sunny. I think there's not much to do here, so we'll see how the rest of this leg of the trip goes. We spent a relaxing couple days in a tiny township called Lake Tekapo. Our Airbnb was right beside a petting zoo, so we got to see animals on our morning walk. Most of the town is accessible by foot, but we drove up to Mount John to see the observatory and did a hike that ended up taking more than an hour. Most of the next day was spent at the hot springs. This one is a public springs, so we were soaking with other people, but it wasn't that crowded. There are 3 pools with different temperatures, and we just sat there until our fingers got pruny. We had lunch there at the cafe, then went for a massage at the day spa, which was heavenly. Other than that, it was mostly cooking and relaxing at our Airbnb. Good morning from the Talbot Forest Scenic Reserve in Geraldine. So today is kind of like a pit stop before we reach our final destination, which is Christchurch. So this morning we checked out of Lake Tekapo and we drove to Fairlie to visit this famous bakery. And we tried their most popular pies, which I was not a fan of. The pork belly was just very disappointing breakfast. And then we came here for a walk through the forest. It was a really short walk, not even a hike. It took about like 30 to 40 minutes, I think. And then I don't know what we're gonna do for the rest of the day, but we only have one stop in Ashburton. And then our last part of the trip, kind of sad it's coming to an end. Before leaving Geraldine, we stopped at a food store and bought a bunch of unique sauces and jams to bring back home. Then we made the drive over to Ashburton. We visited the museum there, and I realized most of the history we've seen revolves around just the British settlers from the 1800s onward, with not much mention of the Maori. For lunch, we went to a restaurant called the Fine Lion, and I got the fish and chips, which was unfortunately soggy and very disappointing. The highlight of this day, though, was our Airbnb. It was the most gorgeous cottage, and this was the only host who was actually there to greet us in person. She has a rose garden that we were allowed to see, and we took some time to walk around the grounds, and I felt like I was in a scene in Pride and Prejudice or something. For dinner, we ordered Chinese food on Uber Eats, and I'll just say that the food in Ashburton was not it for us. Alright, we are heading to our last destination, Christchurch. Stopped by Cookie Time to buy some snacks back for our friends. Then we went to the Willowbank Wildlife Reserve. Saw a bunch of animals, especially birds, and we also bought some feed for the farm animals, which honestly I can never get sick of. We saw a couple animals native to New Zealand as well, such as the kia bird and the kiwi. We had lunch at a local spot, then walked around a mall and called it a day. The next morning in Christchurch, we started with a nice long walk at the Botanic Gardens. It was cloudy and just a little chilly, so halfway through the walk, we stopped by the cafe inside the gardens for a quick coffee. After working up an appetite, we went to the Riverside Market to get our lunch. This is a very bougie indoor market with stalls selling all kinds of international food and snacks. I got some tacos from the Mexican stall and Nick got souvlaki, both of which were excellent. Then we went to the Bridge of Remembrance for our guided walking tour. I love these walking tours because you can learn so much about the history and culture of the city from someone who's truly passionate about the place. I was impressed at how Christchurch totally rebuilt itself after the earthquake, and I saw the city in a new light. Today is the last day of our honeymoon and the weather couldn't be any more perfect. It's super sunny. This morning we went to the Riccarton Sunday Market, which is kind of like this flea market situation that opens once a week on Sundays from 9 to 2 p.m. And we had a really good time there. They sell a bunch of things, everything under the sun, from clothes and books and records and weird vintage things, and obviously a ton of different food stalls. So we went there for an early lunch. We got this steak sandwich, which was the best thing ever, and then fish and chips, which were very nice compared to the one we had at Ashburton. So this one was a success. And then after lunch, we went to the International Antarctic Center. I actually didn't realize up until this trip that New Zealand is really close to Antarctica. So a lot of people go through Christchurch to get to Antarctica. And yeah, we got to meet some penguins and a husky and this weird 4D theater thing that I didn't really like. And we also got to ride this, what do you call it? Like a vehicle that they use in Antarctica, and you can experience what the terrain is like. And that's kind of the last activity of our trip. We came back to our Airbnb and we took a walk around the nearby park, and I think that's it. He's just sitting here looking into the distance because he doesn't want to talk. So we're just going to go back to our Airbnb, finish up on some laundry, walk outside for dinner, and then tomorrow morning early we are flying back to Singapore. This was such a wonderful honeymoon. I really enjoyed myself. I would definitely come back here again if I could. And I hope to see you again, New Zealand. Do you want to say anything?
Bye.
Bye.